sending the closest one to the highest priority call. They were fighting inside the house, then everything spilled out into the front yard. Neighbors heard screams. They came out, saw our victim hurt, and came to her aid. That is new information. It has not even been released here at the watch party. We do see, though, a number of representatives from Pat Roberts' campaign coming in now. We expect him to make a speech soon. And for those who gathered here tonight, supporters of the initiative, they say it is every reason to celebrate. We have made our way to 13th Street since the last time we spoke, where obviously you can tell Wichita police have blocked off 13th. That $5 million is just for the jail. That major expansion project they've been asking for now will likely have to wait. Education was a hot button issue here in Kansas this campaign season. The latest counterfeit trend they're seeing, turning $5 bills into 50s. Much of today's hearing was spent making certain that Curtis Mitchell understands what he's doing, charged with first-degree murder in the death of her son. Her next appearance in Sumner County Court is scheduled for January 8th. Do our schools really know enough about the people they trust with our kids? I investigate who's in our schools. Tonight, her mother struggles to realize she'll never see her little girl again. Students and staff fill this hallway during the school day. It's the only thing that connects the rec center to the grade school. But during school hours, this door stays locked. The county's call volume has increased at a rate of about 3 to 4% each year. With more calls coming in that put a greater demand on EMS, we revealed an alarming trend that could impact you the next time you call 911.
Sedgwick County 911, what's it is your emergency in?
You call 911, an ambulance comes and it takes me to the hospital.
That's what you expect.
There's a lot that goes on to make that happen.
Every time you call 911,
Sedgwick County 911, what city is your emergency?
the call is sent to both EMS and fire. More often than not, an ambulance won't be the first to respond to your emergency in Sedgwick County. Who will? The fire department.
In a lot of the cases, that is true, where they will get there first, and everybody starts out with the basic assessment.
Most firefighters are now trained EMTs, equipped with many of the same tools paramedics have, including training and basic life support.
All right, hun. You don't need anything from us then?
WFD can't transport patients to area hospitals, but when they respond, they significantly cut down the wait time for patients. We saw this firsthand in the 2 days we spent riding along with EMS crews in the Wichita area. In one 6-hour period, inside an ambulance and alongside paramedics, each of the 10 911 calls we went out on, Wichita firefighters got there before we did. So why's fire beating EMS to the scene?
They have a lot more stations around the city.
Both the Wichita and Sedgwick County Fire Departments operate on a grid system. Together, they work out of 30 total brick and mortar stations that are scattered around the area, each station with a designated coverage area. If a fire breaks out near Market and 8th Street in downtown Wichita, Fire Station 1 would respond because, well, they're closest. For EMS, there's only 15 brick and mortar locations to cover that same area, leading EMS to operate more like Uber. The closest ambulance goes to the higher priority call. Ambulances are constantly on the go, hoping they'll be close to the next call that comes in.
We have to balance the need, the demand with the geography. And so we try to do both the best we can with what resources we have available.
But that's tough.
It is tough.
Sedgwick County does its best to predict where those calls will be. They track 2 years of historical data, where and when calls have come in. The darker the color, the greater the demand. Then they position their ambulances in the places they think will be closest to the next emergency. A real-time tracking system knows where each ambulance is, sending the closest one to the highest priority call. But this kind of mobile operation leaves gaps in the service. When one ambulance has to move to cover a serious call, it leaves a hole like this one behind. Those holes can lead to longer response times. Every time you dial 911 in need of emergency care, a stopwatch starts. The county tracks every second how long it takes crews to get to you. Within the city, it should take less than 9 minutes. In suburban Sedgwick County, less than 11 minutes. And in rural areas, less than 16. It's no secret to the head of EMS, they're not meeting their mark.
We're not as reliable as we once were over the years.
And there's data to prove it. In 2011, the county started tracking response times and producing monthly performance reports. EMS sets the standard that each month they'll meet or exceed their on-time response rate on at least 90% of calls. We spent months pouring through nearly 5 years of data, researching how often the county achieved that monthly expectation. In urban areas, EMS meets its own standard more than 98% of the time. But outside city limits, it's a whole different story.
The numbers have reflected, especially in the suburban and rural areas, we're not as reliable as we once were several years ago.
In rural areas, that monthly expectation was met only about 28% of the time. And in suburban areas, it's worse, only 16%. We took the concerns straight to county leaders.
They'll be taken care of with existing resources.
People in these areas of the county might argue that it is an imminent concern, that having an EMS station concerning health, concerning critical calls, that could mean life or death in terms of seconds, response times. What would you say to those families?
We're still going to meet our response time goals. See, that's why I'm saying, I understand. Okay, in general, yeah, EMS stations are important, yes, but the fact that we didn't build this one right now is not anything to be concerned about.
What the county's not building? An EMS station in northeast Sedgwick County. In the last year, EMS requested 2 more stations to physically fill in those coverage holes. Commissioners approved funding for one in southeast Sedgwick County, but denied funds for a northeast station.
With more investment in that area, we would have clearly better response times. Long term, this is where the growth is. This is what we need. Let's plan for it. Here's the time. Let's move on it.
Commissioner Unruh says it's only a matter of time before this way of operating ends in tragedy.
We could bump into a real crisis if we don't plan ahead and make provision for that.
The city and Sedgwick County have operated under some form of mutual agreement since 1975. So does the city of Wichita feel like they're being shortchanged by providing emergency response from firefighters? It's something we're looking into. But so far, council members tell me public safety is a priority they're willing to help fund. Brittany Glas, KSN News.
The last thing I think you want to do is jeopardize one innocent daughter's placement into the criminal.
Tonight, new details in the story we first brought to you Tuesday about the DCF's involvement with the death of a child allegedly at his mother's hands. Good evening, everyone. I'm Darren Dito.
And I'm Stephanie Bergman. There are some new developments in that case. Just after 4 o'clock today, a judge decided Nicole Blansett is competent to stand trial for the first-degree murder of her son, Caleb. There are also new charges against her, aggravated assault with a knife. The DA says she continued to stab her son even after he cried out for her to stop. Her arraignment has been set for May 28th.
On Tuesday, we told you DCF did not meet their own guidelines regarding contact that is, with the Blansett family after abuse allegations were made in the days before Caleb's murder. We also told you Tuesday DCF did not want Clint Blansett, the father, to talk to anyone about this case.
Tonight we have learned a DCF worker pressured him to sign a gag order preventing him from talking to the media by using what Clint Blansett calls threats and intimidation. KSN's Brittany Glas joins us now. So Brittany, when did this happen?
Stephanie, Darren, you'll remember Caleb was killed on December 14th. On December 15th, there was an emergency court hearing where Clint Blansett was given temporary custody of his daughter. But what happens the very next day makes it very clear. DCF absolutely wanted Clint Blansett to keep quiet. Yesterday, in response to our investigation, DCF sent us an email saying, quote, "We issued no gag order. That is not within our authority." In fact, a judge issued that order with DCF's full support. We went back to Clint and asked him to clarify the gag order issue, and we were sent an audio file. What you're about to hear is a secret audio recording of a meeting between a DCF social worker and Clint Blansett. It took place on December 16th, the day after that custody hearing, and just 2 days after his son was killed. This social worker, who we are not naming, is walking Clint through the legal papers, which include an order for him to not talk to the media or else.
What I need you to sign this, saying and that you'll follow this.
Clint Blancett asks the social worker what he should do because reporters have already been calling, asking for an interview.
Well, I've had a lot of reporters calling me. Do I just tell them I have a gag order? I can't speak to you?
I would say I cannot speak, period. I wouldn't even say gag order.
That's what it is.
I get that.
That's what it is.
But if you say that, then they're going to put that on TV.
Clint is clearly concerned about not being able to talk to the media.
I'll follow this, but I gotta tell you, there's no media here. It goes against my civil rights as an American. I'm gonna sign it because I don't want to lose my little girl, but I just want you to know that you're taking my rights away from me. Right?
The social worker tells Clint she's merely following a court order.
I am not doing anything. That was a court order.
And reminds him how important it is that he does not talk about this case.
The last thing I think you want to do is jeopardize, one, your daughter's placement, and two, the criminal case. Right?
I don't think there's any way I can jeopardize the
Well,
criminal case.
but I don't want no
little girl.
loopholes in that criminal. That's why I have to stay back. Okay?
Clint agrees reluctantly.
I'm signing this under duress.
The caseworker reminds Caleb's father multiple times about the potential consequences if he violates the order. That if he talks about the case, she will go to the judge.
I will notify them immediately.
And she also said,
If something goes wrong and this isn't complied by, if we hear that you're discussing with the media, that's Candace's case with the media, then this is what I'm going to do, which I'll follow this court order.
Going as far as to say it is her obligation as a social worker on the case to report any violations of the order.
I have an obligation, excuse me, as a social worker to do that.
Since this tragedy, Clint Blancett decided he would talk to KSN because he's concerned about what happened to his family and more concerned about what's happened even after the tragic death of his young son.
So that's just as plain and simple as I can get. I think it's fair.
Clint tells me he decided to record this meeting with the DCF caseworker after first meeting with DCF employees the day after his son's death. He says he felt like they were there not to help him and his grieving daughter, but to cover up DCF's involvement. On this recording, Clint seems to be compliant with the caseworker, even friendly at times. He says he felt like he had to do everything this caseworker told him to do, or he would lose custody of his daughter. We did reach out to the caseworker this afternoon, but have not heard back. We also contacted DCF just before 2 this afternoon. They say, quote, DCF does not issue gag orders or threaten removal of a child if someone speaks to the media. Our safety plans include directions issued by the court, which may include instruction not to speak with the media. This is not a directive from the agency. Our concern is for the privacy and protection of the child in out-of-home placement.
Well, Brittany, last night you talked with Representative Ed Trimmer. I know he said he wanted to see more transparency with DCF and called for changes in the department. Have you spoken with him today?
Yes, Darren, I certainly have. And I told Representative Trimmer about the audio recording, and he says this is further evidence of how big a problem transparency is at the department. He's still committed to bring change at the head of this agency. Now, the unfortunate thing is that with this year's legislative session set to wrap up on Saturday, with no chance to enter into any new legislation, this will be something that'll likely have to wait until next year in Topeka.
All right. I know you're going to keep on this report. Thanks, Brittany.
Governor Brownback also spoke, giving his State of the State address in Topeka. The governor addressed lawmakers at the state capitol, talking about hot-button issues like education and security. Brittany Glas was in Topeka today and has this story.
Darren, this room was full. The House chambers full tonight for the 2016 State of the State address. Governor Sam Brownback addressing lawmakers, looking to the past with positivity and looking to the future, a promising future, he says. But some lawmakers I spoke with tonight say that the governor's speech left them wanting more. With the new year brings the hope for a new direction in the Kansas State Legislature.
We need to listen to some other ideas, some new ideas.
Governor Sam Brownback Tuesday night addressing lawmakers at the State House with pride.
We have achieved our lowest level of unemployment in 14 years, with a record number of Kansans working.
And a positive outlook.
The state of our state is strong.
The governor talking hot button issues like education, economic development, and safety amid national security threats. But the topic that Brownback said little about was the budget crisis facing Kansas.
The one thing that I'm a little still unsure about is what we are going to do about the budget. And he didn't really address spending tonight, about what we're going to be able to do to make sure that all of our checks clear.
We just got out of a session where we had the largest tax increase in the history of the state, and yet the governor provided no guidance or leadership on how we get out of that problem.
We look ahead now to tomorrow morning, Wednesday morning, when the governor's proposed budget will be presented to a joint House Appropriations and Senate Ways and Means session. That is scheduled to begin Wednesday morning at 9. There, lawmakers I spoke with say they'll hopefully learn more direct guidance on the fate of our financial state.
This day was special for me, and she made it special.
A treasured birthday card speaks well wishes a year later.
And in her handwriting, she wrote, "Honey, I can't imagine my world without you. Happy birthday, love, sweetheart." And she talked about her world without me, and now I live my world without her.
It's been 1 year since the plane crash that killed Larry Menestrina's beloved wife, Natalia. For him, life a year later may appear very much the same. This time last year,
They sang happy birthday to me, and she sang it in her beautiful little sing-songy Ukrainian accent, which was always so beautiful.
a festive display on the family's fireplace remains. The presents from Natalia never opened.
You know, I'm not ready to take all that stuff down, because if that wasn't up, there would be nothing. It's a reminder.
Before he had the chance,
I was downstairs paying bills, and she came by and said, "Sweetheart, I'm going to bed now." It never crossed my mind that that would be the last time that I would not, ever see her again.
not even 12 hours later, on Thursday, October 30th.
And I came to the airport road, and I saw the black billowing flames come out, and I didn't know exactly which part of the building she was in. And I said, "I think my wife is in that building."
At the time of her death, Natalia Menestrina was working as a Russian translator for Flight Safety International. When the plane crashed, she was inside a simulator in the building.
And I just kept looking at a hallway, and I thought, any minute she's going to be walking around with one of her goofy little grins, and I'm going to run up to her and give her a big hug.
Larry Menestrina calls his late wife his soulmate.
Suddenly, tragically, it's gone. It just leaves a void in your heart that is gone.
Menestrina says it was most difficult to have to tell their children that their mother passed away.
I had to exhibit strength and courage.
That courage bolstered by his wife's loving memory.
It's a reminder. It's a reminder of how much she loved and cared for me.
Giving Larry Menestrina the strength to celebrate birthdays all year long.
I'm going to do my darndest to keep my wife's memory alive for my daughters